It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the program. Thank you so much for being with us. Hour number two. Hour number one is in the can. Hour number two, the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. 90 seconds, General Assembly coverage. We got some bills that have been filed, bills that Conduit for Action is watching. And here now to talk about week number two, the scorecard, week number two. We have Mr. Josh Waters on the phone. Josh, how are you, sir?
Hey, good morning, Paul. I'm doing good.
I am pretty excited about some of these bills. You know, they seem to be good. About what's on the radar for this week, and of course, this weekly scorecard. Eventually, these bills are going to be used to score the legislators themselves about what they support. You know, do they support bigger government, smaller government, and that sort of thing. So I know it's very handy. So, let's go ahead and start at the top. The first bill that is on the radar this week, support HB 1251. It's a bill that Conduit supports, expanding the scope of practice for optometrists by State Representative John Eubanks. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so this bill is, pretty straightforward. It expands the scope of practice for optometrists, specifically allows them to perform some ophthalmic surgeries, but not some major surgeries. So, it's not, a huge leap forward. But, anything that expands the scope of practice obviously would increase the choices that a patient has, have their optometrist perform something rather than maybe having to go to a separate ophthalmologist. And so, the more choice that a patient has, the more economic freedom they have in that. So, that's a good bill, and that would decrease dependency on government. And so that's why it's on the scorecard this week as a support position.
Yeah, that's great. We're putting the graphic up there right now for our online audience. You can check it out, folks, at conduitnews.com, YouTube, or facebook.com/conduitnews. Okay, so the expansion of the optometrist scope of practice, that is a good thing. Definitely. Okay, so then the next one would be HB 1255. Tell us about State Representative Jim Dotson's bill.
So this bill is, similar, same as what was ran last session, but it would basically require any licensing board to adopt the least restrictive requirements for licensing, certification, when they're looking at someone coming from another state that had, a similar license in their state. So it's really talking here about reciprocity and how they're going to license someone and how someone can have reciprocity. So, first off, Paul, this would almost immediately be able to create some competition for those maybe looking to come to Arkansas and to work. So, hey, I can go there. They have the least, they have to adopt the least restrictive requirements for licensing. Now, it doesn't mean, okay, someone coming from another state has easier requirements. It's just, it can't be any more restrictive than kind of what's on the books for the license in the state. And so it could provide some more competition. We all know competition can always lower prices or boost the quality of services. And so more economic freedom for our Kansans. Another good thing with this Paul, any deregulation type bill, it's decreasing dependency on government, because instead it's relying on the free market and people's free choices, and they'll have greater access, hopefully, to all these various jobs out there that require a license.
Arkansas, we've talked about this a lot on the show. Arkansas does have some pretty stringent regulations as far as our licenses. I mean, we've got more licensing boards than the state of New York. Last time I checked, and maybe that's different now. I don't know, but what you're telling me is, Josh, that if you're living in another state and you're licensed in that state to do profession X, and you come to Arkansas is going to basically hold your license in that other state as an Arkansas license?
Yeah, well, it's going to, adopt the least restrictive requirement. So you have a license, to be a cosmetologist maybe in another state, or it's depending on specific field, but if you have that license in another state and you want to come to Arkansas, the licensing board isn't going to be able to put up all these hurdles saying, no, we want to make it hard because we don't want new people in Arkansas. There's this, I think, idea that protectionism is a good idea, and protectionism meaning, well, we're going to protect our, in-state people who have been here rather than, well, let's do what's best for the consumer. Let's make people have the most choice possible, right?
Yeah.
And so this would just say, hey, when adopting, licensing requirements, when you're looking at people coming from out of state, you have to use the least restrictive possible.
Wow. Yeah, and that would lower prices for consumers too. So that certainly is always a good thing. Okay, on the graphic there, we've got an opposed bill next. We're going to save that for last. Let's go to this other bill, which would be SB 157, Senate Bill 157, the repeal of electrology licensure. This is Senator Bob Ballinger's bill. What does it do?
Yeah. So it's pretty straightforward. It's a bill. It repeals the license that's required to be an electrologist. And so people don't know what electrologist is. I wasn't familiar with the term. I knew, it was a thing out there. Basically, these are people who are removing hair through a laser or a needle. So someone's just, removing hair through a needle. They're no longer going to have to go through, education and training requirements that maybe a full-blown cosmetologist would have to undergo. So again, it's a repeal of the licensure, and so we think this is a good thing. It decreases dependency on government, provides more choice to consumers, and thus provides more economic freedom to Arkansans.
Wow, yeah. So we kind of got a theme here about deregulation. Yeah, I guess, when you think about it, I wonder, do we know if the electrologists are in favor of this? Do they want their licensure repealed?
I'm not sure, but that's always a good question because people like, well, who wants this or who doesn't want it? I'm assuming they would want it, but there are instances sometimes, Paul, I know we talked about last week, an industry will come forward, an industry association, something like that will come forward and say, hey, we want more regulation because we want it to be more burdensome. We want it to be harder for people to break into the trade. That's called a barrier to entry.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure, where electrologists stand on this, but we know for consumers and for economic freedom in Arkansas, this is a deregulation bill. It's less dependency on government, and so I think a good bill.
Okay, so the last bill that Conduit supports is scoring positively for this week, week number 2, is SB 166. This is Senator John Cooper's bill. Repeals the licensure of plant nursery workers. Tell us about this one.
Yes, so I didn't even know this was a license. There's so many licenses in Arkansas. And I was looking at a report that, Acre had put out, and they've got all the list of all the licenses, how burdensome they are, the average fees, the average estimated calendar days, and things like that. And nursery worker, it's not really high up on the list. It's actually next to last on the list, but nonetheless, it's repealing a license for people that work at a plant nursery. And so, it's not, so people are not confused. It's not a nursery worker that are taking care of their kids at a daycare, right? That's not what we're talking about here. The nursery worker, so working definitions of sale of florist stock, trees, shrubs, vines,
Isn't that
buds.
crazy? Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy that if you want to grow plants and sell them, that you have to have a permission slip from the state to do so? That is insane to me.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that's going to be the easiest vote and decision ever. It's a pretty straightforward bill. It just straight out repeals this license. Again, not one of the more burdensome ones out there, but nonetheless, it repeals the licensure and thus is decreasing dependency on government. It's moving to a free market system, letting people choose their plant nursery, that they want without really having to worry about I guess, is this safe? At some point, I guess people worried if, people were providing safe bushes. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, hey, Arkansas's government really thinks it's got, it's got the, got to protect us from, people who work in a greenhouse. I mean, come on, it's just ridiculous. Okay, so let's get to the one bill on the scorecard this week that Conduit opposes, HB 1260. It is a gas tax increase, been filed by State Representative Dan Douglas. We were talking about it, Josh, during the last half hour on the program. What can you tell us about this bill and why Conduit opposes HB 1260?
So this bill was just filed yesterday by Representative Dan Douglas, and we've heard a lot already at the beginning of the session that there's going to be some type of highway plan. This is a highway bill. This doesn't necessarily mean this is the highway plan that the governor's, going to be behind or that is really going to be the one pushed. But nonetheless, Dan Douglas has filed this gas tax increase bill. So what this would do, Paul, one, the main thing it would do is it would create a new sales tax at the wholesale level on gasoline and diesel. It'd be a per gallon tax, and that would be determined by a formula. It would take the average wholesale price of gas for the region and multiply that by 3.5%. So I ran some numbers, and it looked like based on kind of where gas prices are now, it would be about a 6.97% per gallon tax. Now, it's important to remember this is going to be a new additional tax at the wholesale level. There's already a 21.8 cent per gallon tax at the retail level. So what you're looking at here is a form of double taxation, and this can grow, and actually it's designed to grow from year to year. And so then, of course, that money would be distributed 70% to state highways, 15% to county roads, and 15% to city roads.
When you say it's designed to grow every year, is that the index it to inflation that we've heard about, or is this? What do you mean by that?
No, it's not indexed to inflation. It's just designed to where if there's ever, for whatever reason, if the price of gasoline goes down, then they would use the year before rate. And so, since it's looking at the price of gasoline, and that's in the formula multiplied by 3.5%, it's guaranteed. It's going to be a guaranteed increase whatever the price of gas goes up. Because if it ever goes down, it's in the bill saying if the price goes down, we look at the last year's.
Well, that's not right. That's not right. So that actually is an outrage to me. It's ridiculous. Okay, well, it's pretty clear why Conduit would oppose this bill. I mean, it's taking more money from the people, right? I mean, that's the idea, is to go to the people, take more money, right?
Yep. At the end of the day, people would have less money. They're going to be paying more for gas, and it's really a way of double taxation on gas. We already have the highest. I think Tennessee's might be a little higher, but of all the other states that border Arkansas already has the highest gas tax. The price per gallon is 21.8 cents. And this would just be in addition to that. And so, that this is one way. There's not been a fiscal impact statement made, so it's unclear what the estimate of revenue to be put in. But one thing this bill does do, Paul, it's a little confusing, but they put into the statute, put into the bill here that the sale of used cars, that revenue from that may be used in the future to go and support roads. But there's a big but there, because the bill says it would only ever be triggered if and when general revenue of all sales and use tax exceeds $2.5 billion for the state. And just for context, in fiscal year 2018, the state from general revenue, sales, and use tax was $2.4 billion. So we're still over $500 million away from even hitting that number. And then, Paul, even if that number is hit, then just in the first year, then $30 million from used car sales revenue, not from all general revenue, but from used car sales revenue. would go towards highways.
I'm not
So
really
it's a very,
sure.
very large hurdle.
Yeah, it
What's
is.
that?
But I'm just not sure why we wouldn't have the revenue from used car sales already going to our roads. Like, why not? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Right. Well, and that's what a lot of people, I think have been debating. Hey, instead of raising a tax, let's use existing revenue and just prioritize that money and put it towards roads. And so some people have thrown out that idea. So what it seems like is this is kind of getting at that, but it has such a high threshold. I'm not sure if and when it would be reached. I guess, at some point down the road, as long as, the economy keeps growing, maybe 10 years from now we'll hit 2 points.
Well, I tell you what's interesting about this. Conduit opposes it because it's a tax increase. Governor Asa Hutchinson is quoted in the Gazette is that he opposes it, not necessarily because it's a tax increase, but he opposes it because it is going to take general revenue at some point, and he opposes going into general revenue to fund our roads, which is strange. I mean, the reason I say it's strange is because we are already paying. Agreement is uniform. I mean, it is bipartisan. It may be the most bipartisan issue in the entire state that people would like to have roads and they'd like to have them better. I mean, that's just what people agree to. That, hey, this is one of government's responsibilities. Now I could get into a debate about how it shouldn't be, but I won't. Most people think that so we're already giving government money to do these things. And yet we are doing all these other projects that do not have that level of consensus. And we won't even look at those programs and say, you know what, we don't need to be funding this, or we need to cut here a little bit, take that money, and then maybe take all of the money from used car sales and put that towards roads so we don't have to go back to the people and ask for more money. I mean, that's the kind of creativity that I think the people would really support, and they would really cheer these legislators on. So let's hope that the conversation gets started and we go in that direction. That's my hope, anyway.
Yeah. Now, I wanted to just clarify something. I think I misspoke a little bit, Paul. The amount that it would trigger at is $2.5 billion, right? And in fiscal year, the general revenue is $2.448 billion. So it is a little closer than, it's not $500 million away. It's more about $50 million away.
$50 million away, not $500 million.
Correct that.
Okay.
So that would be, probably in the next couple of years. But then from that, in the first year, $30 million from used car sales tax revenue would go. But the big thing here that people need to know about is this would create a new sales tax at the wholesale level, in addition to what they're already paying at the retail level in the 21.8 cents per gallon.
Yeah. And when you say double taxation, that really is exactly what it is. You're basically taking a product that people need and you're finding a different way to tax it when we already are paying tax on it. Hey, Josh Waters, we got to take a break, sir, but that's the Conduit scorecard for week number 2. I really appreciate you coming on and going over it with us, sir.
Yep. Thanks for having me, Paul. Have a good one.
All righty. Thanks, Josh.